nothing of the sort.
How do you do, Dr. Carr? Katie, do come and sit down, she said briskly.
Dad sat on a proffered chair. I was clearly already sitting.
It's good of you to see us immediately, Mrs. Matthews,
said Dad in his most doctorly voice.
But Katie has made a good recovery and feels she's ready to go to school now.
But I thought you felt Springfield was unsuitable when you phoned earlier.
I know. Katie felt she needed to make a completely fresh start at a school where she didn't know anyone, given her circumstances. But now...
Now I've changed my mind, I said, though actually inside I was still wavering. I kept thinking about Eva Jenkins and her cronies imitating me, calling me names, about Ryan looking at me pityingly and backing away from me. But Helen had given me courage. I would cope with them, somehow.
The trouble is, I've already given your place to someone else, said Mrs. Matthews smoothly, so it's going to be a bit of a problem. Did you put Katie's name down at another school in the interim, Dr. Carr? No, we didn't. I went to look at several schools, but none seemed suitable, said Dad. I wonder if you looked at Manor Road. I believe they have several disabled pupils at their school and have all sorts of facilities. A lift to the upper floor, a special disabled lavatory. I think Katie might find it easier there, she said silkily, giving me a little smile. I did look at Manor Road, but it's so far away from us. It would be a 40-minute journey, maybe more in the rush hour, and to be frank, Manor Road doesn't have the academic reputation that Springfield has, said Dad. His tone was equally pleasant but firm. Katie's very bright, Mrs. Matthews. Oh, I'm aware of that, Dr. Carr. Her report from her primary school makes that plain, she said. That's partly the difficulty. We like to introduce our pupils to as wide a range of subjects as possible. We feel that the sciences are particularly important. Unfortunately, the science labs are all on the first floor, so I don't see how Katie could access them. Is there no possibility of having a lift put in? Said Dad. Well, certainly that would be an ideal solution. It might well be possible, but as I'm sure you realise, we can't simply install a lift overnight. Could Katie not meanwhile study the science textbooks somewhere else downstairs, just until the lift is installed? Said Dad. Well, that is an option, though far from ideal. And then there's the question of lavatories. I'm afraid our girls' toilets all have small, narrow cubicles. I went to check earlier on. I simply don't think it would be possible for Katie to manoeuvre her wheelchair in and out, said Mrs. Matthews. Oh, said Dad. Well, I'm sure it would be possible to install special disabled facilities, but I can see perhaps we'll have to wait until that's the case. I was thinking hard. I thought about the toilets at my old school, the girls' toilets, the boys' toilets, and the special nicer toilets just for the teachers. What about the staff toilets? I asked. They're bigger, aren't they? Yes, I suppose so, said Mrs. Matthews. Big enough for my wheelchair? Perhaps, but I'm not sure they're still suitable, and there's only one on the ground floor anyway. One's surely enough, said Dad, just until you get a proper disabled lavatory installed. Dr. Carr, I've only got a limited amount of money in my annual budget. I can't work miracles. These are old premises. It's not as if it's a new build. Yes, I understand it's going to be a bit of a problem, but I'm sure there are special grants given the circumstances. And, as I'm sure you're aware, schools do have to make special provision for disabled pupils nowadays, Dad said. Mrs. Matthews looked at him. She looked at me. I can see you're both determined that Katie should attend Springfield. Very well, we'll do our level best to welcome you here, Katie. Perhaps you'd like to start next Monday, she said. Dad and I waited till we were out in the corridor and then high-fived each other. I wrote a long, triumphant email to Helen that afternoon. I also tried Dexter again, showing off a little, boasting that I'd bulldozed my way into the school of my choice. Helen replied that evening, a wonderfully long email that made me glow all over. And Dexter replied too, though without any words. The subject on the email said,
Super Katie, and he'd sent a photo of a page from his sketchbook. He'd drawn me looking even taller, with SK inscribed on my t-shirt, sitting in a wheelchair like Boudica's chariot, with iron spikes sticking out from both sides. I was charging my way into a school, with staff and pupils alike running in all directions and shrieking and cowering. I laughed out loud and showed it off proudly to Clover and Cece when they came to see me after school. "So you're really coming to Springfield after all, Katie?" Cece asked. "Yep, it's all arranged. Mrs. Matthews tried to put us off, but we soon fixed her," I said airily. "My goodness, you argued with Mrs. Matthews," said Cece, sounding incredibly impressed. "She can be really scary sometimes. Good for you. Oh, Katie, it will be wonderful having you at school with me. I do hope we'll be in the same class. You mustn't worry about a thing. I'll push you everywhere you need to go." "I won't need to be pushed. I'll wheel myself," I said. "But thanks anyway, Cece. It'll be great to be with you." "And I'll be at Springfield next year and I'll watch out for you then," said Clover fiercely. "Is it true that the big girls grab hold of you in the toilets and stick your head down the loo?" "That's rubbish, Clover. No, they're mostly all fine, and the boys are okay too. There's this really cool guy in year 8, Richie, and he bumped into me in the corridor